So good news, I'm done eating. This time you didn't catch me eating. I do kind of have a lot of things on my desk though. They're actually all matter. Of course they are, because everything's made up of matter, right? But they're not solids. Last week we learned about solids, and we learned that solids is anything that takes up space, has its own shape, and has volume. That means you can't change how much there is of it. Today, though, we're going to learn about something that's just a little bit different than a solid, and that's a liquid. So, remember when we were using the connecting cubes, that the solids were really tightly packed, but the liquids were a little bit spaced further apart so I could move through them? That's right. What does that matter? What's so special about a liquid? Well, liquids take up space, just like solids. Take the shape of its container. We'll get there. And can't change its volume. So, just like if I have an apple and I cut it up, I'm still going to have a whole apple. But a liquid is the same thing. However much I have, I'm still going to have it no matter what happens to it. Take the shape of its container, though. What does that mean? Well, let me show you some liquids. Water is a great example of a liquid. You see what's different about water? That water changes. It moves. Solids don't move like that, do they? In fact, I can pour a liquid. Notice that if I just had water on my desk or in my hands, I'd have a mess. That's because liquids take the shape of their container. When I pour it in here, it's going to take the shape of my cup. If I pour it into something else, it's going to take the shape of something else. My lotion? It's a liquid. See how I can pour it out? And once it's here, it takes the shape of my hand because it's not a solid. It's a liquid. Same thing with my hand sanitizer. Ooh. I just got it on my table. But guess what? It took the shape of my table. That's because it's a liquid. Just like my dressing from the other day. It's a liquid. So is glue. Do you see it moving in the container? See how when I change the container and how it lays, it takes the shape of that container? That's because it's a liquid. So, what I want you to do is this week I want you to experiment with some liquids. I want you to find 3 containers. Maybe a little cup, maybe a bigger cup, maybe a water bottle, maybe a plate, maybe some bath toy cup containers, whatever. I want you to experiment with the liquid, and by the way, you do it in the bathtub, you're going to save your parents a headache. I want you to take those liquids and I want you to experiment. See how no matter where you pour them, they're going to turn in and use the shape of its container. I still have the same amount. Every time I do it, I still have the same amount. You can even get a measuring cup. Measure out an entire cup. Pour water into the cup. Take that measuring cup, pour it into a different container. Get a giant bowl. Pour it into a giant bowl. And then pour it back into that measuring cup. Do you still have a cup? Yeah. That's because it's still going to have the same volume. It took the shape of the container, but it still has the same volume. That's what makes a liquid. Once you're done, I want you to write about what's a liquid. Remember, a liquid? Let's review. A liquid is anything that takes up space, takes the shape of its container, and doesn't change its volume. That's your job. Experiment, write about it, and then we'll talk about it in class.